Hi, it's Allister here. You all know that we've been changing our hot glass studio from gas to electric. I'm going to talk today a little bit about those changes that we've been going through, the effects they've had on the studio and what we've been doing since. As a little bit of a recap, this is home, Stourbridge Glass Museum, and been open for about 5 or 6 years now. In September 2022, this is what the studio looked like. Fully serviced, well maintained gas furnace. Taken me about 25 years to get to this stage in life, a gas glory hole or reheating chamber, and the gas annealing ovens. And at this point, it's fair to say I got work in museums around the world into the permanent collections. My work was being represented throughout galleries across the country. Things were ticking over well, and I was quite proud of where we were going. Why would there be the need to change anything, really? I wasn't alone when the energy crisis hit. Bristol Blue, Bath Aqua, and even glassmakers in Murano were suffering the consequences of an energy crisis. At that moment in time, my gas bills were about $12,000 a year. Quotes were coming in where our gas bills could increase to as much as $120,000 a year. Knowing that that wasn't commercially viable, I needed to make some changes. In fact, what I was forced to do was to sign up on a contract which was going to take our gas bills to around about the $85,000 a year. It was just a painful time. My last gas bill was for 20 days over £7,000. Where was I going to go from here? It had weighed on my mind for some time now, but there's no avoiding the issue that as a hot glass artist, we consume quite a lot of energy. And if anybody asked about sustainability, I'd quickly change the subject. Was this just a harsh reminder of this fact, and should I really stop? And I wondered if it was possible to continue and do the right thing by the environment. I really wanted to preserve the activity of glassmaking at Stourbridge Glass Museum for future generations, but it's fair to say I was very scared of change. After quite a lot of research, I came down to the point I wanted to use some UK suppliers to create a fully electric hot shop. And that's where I created my mother of all shopping lists. It still fills me with dread when I look at this list. There are a couple of items on this list which are brand new pieces of equipment: an electric pipe warmer and an electric reheating chamber, things that were just being developed, very much in the prototype stages, and nobody really knew or trusted them. It's essentially what this video is about. It's about putting this information out there so that you can gain an understanding of how they now perform, so that if you are in need of changing your studio over, there's a record here and a proof of how things operate. In that big picture of looking at the £184,000 worth of funding, it seemed like an insurmountable goal, really. The only way of dealing with it, be aware of the bigger picture, but to break it down into manageable chunks. That did something funny to my brain, and I think the next slide shows where my mind was at this point. I wore this headpiece for a fashion show at the International Festival of Glass. I honestly thought I was in my last year working as a professional glass artist. So I agreed to do all manner of things, from doing this fashion show to agreeing to be a mentor and make it at market. All of that attention brought in new work. Money started to come in, which meant that in July 2023, we were able to put in our portable furnace. Interpower supplied it, which was wheeled in, plugged in, and 5 days later we were off. With the new furnace came this newfound ability to track our consumption, and we've got a graph here which shows the furnace warming up, temperature fluctuations caused by filling on the furnace, our working day, how a melt cycle looks, and when we're doing a working day with no fill. And I was able to cross-reference those charts against our energy consumption, just to see how we might be able to adapt our behaviour within the hot shop to consume less energy. So it was a bit of a game changer, because we weren't ever able to assess our consumption in this way before. One of the examples, we have a night door and a day door, and in putting those in, it just helped us reduce our energy consumption. As you can see, the charts, they say it all. Now, with that as well became my ability to do some carbon counting. If you want to learn it in more depth, you can take a look at my previous video on YouTube. In switching from gas to electric, we saved over 10 tons of carbon emissions per year. If you're going to jump in a family car and drive 1.5 times around the planet, the carbon that you created in that journey is equal to what we save just by switching to an electric furnace. I think this was the first time that I thought there might be a really sensible way forward for the future of glassmaking which doesn't involve fossil fuels. The next piece of equipment that came in was the electric layers from Kiln Care. Again, they went in really smoothly, and again they have the ability to track the consumption on those. So we were saving 8.4 tonnes of carbon emissions a year, which again was about 1.2 laps of the planet in this family car. That was where my story ended in our previous video, and we were due to test and take on a test drive the electric reheating chamber. Now, nobody really knew how this would perform over a period of time. All I'm going to say is that it was like being given the world's first air fryer, told you've got to switch your gas cooker off, now cook with this piece of equipment, and sorry, by the way, we've got no instructions. You know that it's capable of doing so, but it just took months of tuning in to understand where the heat was, the difference between the gas glory hole and the electric glory hole. The electric reheating chamber gives out a really even heat, which is really useful in some applications. We've managed to get used to how to work with this. I don't think it holds us back in any way, shape or form, but more importantly, the carbon savings that we have, 3/4 of a lap of a planet in that family car. As today stands, this is what the studio looks like. So the carbon savings that we're now making in the studio are a total annual saving of the equivalent of 3.5 laps in the planet in a family car. We've managed to convert the studio completely to electric, running efficiently, assessing our consumption, adapting the way that we do things to ensure that we minimize our consumption. Now, if that was the gas equipment, that's as far as you can go, really. There are no more tricks to be added to the equation. If I take you back to my previous shopping list, there were voltage optimizers and there were solar panels to add. We've been running with the solar panels for a year. Last year was sensational. We had some really great weather, and I took some data from that graph on the right. We actually generated 31% of the energy that we required to run the studio. I think that's almost enough to cover the furnace itself. Or the discount that provides has enabled us to sign up to a contract where sadly we're having to pay more, but we're buying energy from a company that just puts renewables into the national grid. So effectively our hot glass studio is carbon neutral to run because of that. 10 tonnes of carbon emissions have been saved through the solar panels. So we're now another 1.5 laps of the planet. And at this point, I was gaining a lot of attention because of the positive stories that were coming out. We're the first to be playing these games in the glass world, and I'm quite proud of that fact. One of the first organisations to really acknowledge the progress we were making with the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Trust and Heritage Crafts with the Environmental Sustainability Award. And with that, a series of other awards has followed. What they really did was draw attention to our achievements, and that gained the attention of other companies. We're now doing 5 laps of the planet in a family car, what we're saving. It's fair to say there's been a seismic shift now in where the studio is at. We've gone from my mindset of thinking maybe this is my last year as a professional glass artist to I'm excited about my future now. It was so nice just to start to work on exciting projects again. And the Thomas Heatherwick project certainly gave us a buzz. Since then, we've produced a series of new styles and new ranges, and I think our collections proved that we've managed to make those changes in the studio without having to compromise on quality of our designs or craftsmanship. The museum was in tandem, implementing all sorts of changes. In 2025, the museum became the Midlands' most award-winning museum. It's definitely an exciting place to visit. I guess if you're in any doubt as to whether these changes should be made, hopefully this video has been of some use. Come and take a look if you're interested to learn any more, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to our story.